Superstorm Sandy has made landfall this morning along the coast of southern New Jersey. 5 people already reported dead in New York, and that is why the president is saying, listen to what the administration is telling you. When you are told to evacuate, you need to evacuate. Post-tropical storm Sandy is one of the biggest ever to hit the United States and has lashed the densely populated East Coast area, shutting down transportation, forcing evacuations in flood-prone areas. More than 1 million people are already without power, and millions more could lose electricity in the hours to come. New York and other cities closed their transit systems and schools, ordering mass evacuations from low-lying areas ahead of the storm surge that could reach as much as 11 feet high waves that could lash the shore, and of course winds more than 150 to 200 kilometers an hour. Sandy is moving closer to converging with 2 cold weather systems to form a fearsome superstorm of snow, of rain and wind. Forecasters warned of a 20-foot wave bashing into Chicago lakefront and up to 3 feet of snow in West Virginia.
Well, it's only going to get worse. I'm standing about 20 miles from Washington, D.C., and if I just put my umbrella down, you would have at this point. Because it's not all of Hurricane Sandy anywhere down. And going by these wind gusts, it is this is here in northern Virginia, that wind chill and this wind is the way down. And if you know, up the seacoast of the United States, it is only going to get worse, especially New York and southern New Jersey.
All right, President Obama already has declared emergencies in Massachusetts, in Connecticut, in Rhode Island, in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, authorizing federal relief work to begin well ahead of time. He promised that the government would respond, and I quote, respond big and respond fast after the storm hits. Obviously, the U.S. administration has come under fire for previous instances of not really doing as much as possible in the aftermath of a hurricane or a storm system. This time, obviously, Obama doesn't want to make any mistakes.
We are certain that this is going to be a slow-moving process through a wide swath of the country, and millions of people are going to be affected. So the most important message that I have for the public right now is please listen to what your state and local officials are saying. When they tell you to evacuate, you need to evacuate.
Now, that's, of course, a warning that most Americans should be listening to at this point of time, because this is not the usual storm that they can weather out. This is obviously a massive hurricane. Now, technically speaking, although Sandy is not a hurricane anymore, it's a post-tropical superstorm, but it still is packing a hurricane-sized punch as it slams into New Jersey coast on Monday evening American time. Now, Sandy whipped torrents of water over the streets of Atlantic City, stretching for blocks inland and ripping apart vacation spots fabled boardwalk. It's spawned high winds and torrential rains from North Carolina to Maine and knocked out power to nearly 3 million customers across 11 states in the District of Columbia. It was also blamed for the first confirmed U.S. death on Monday night when a man was killed by a tree that fell on his house in New York borough of Queens. The storm hit land near Atlantic City with wind speeds of 80 miles per hour and windfall down to about 90 miles per hour clocked after hurricane force winds stretched from Cape Cod to the Virginia coast and it swept ashore. The storm surge setting new high water records for lower Manhattan and swamping beach fronts on both sides of Long Island. All right, Rukmani now joins us for more on this. Rukmani, just break down really what is happening there in simplistic terms. What is the threat perception at this point of time? And what part of the danger is over? When do we see the worst really come in?
Akash, from what we understand, the worst is yet to happen. Pennsylvania is really bracing for the worst of Hurricane Sandy. Pennsylvania is taking all precautions. 1,600 troops from the National Guard have been called in to brace for any emergencies. A quick update. We know for a fact now that confirmed fatalities have gone up to 10. There have been fatalities in New York, Connecticut and Virginia. This despite all the precautions being taken by the government, people being asked to evacuate. But as you can see from your visuals, Akash, a lot of people are not taking those warnings very seriously. A lot of people want to track that storm. They want to brace that storm and see what it feels like. There have been repeated appeals from President Barack Obama saying that people should evacuate as and when their state tells them to do so. Remember, Sandy is no longer a hurricane. She's a post-tropical storm, as you rightly pointed out. It really is not even as high in intensity as Hurricane Katrina was, Akash. But what is really important is Sandy is growing in expanse as she progresses, and with two winter fronts going to merge with Sandy, it's going to become far more lethal and strong. And the concern is that it is going to get far more destructive as it progresses towards Pennsylvania and the rest of the East Coast. Already getting information of houses being toppled over, massive power cuts, Akash, in the US. Over 2 million people have already been plunged into darkness as a result of the New York State pulling the plug on power as an emergency situation just to avoid any extenuating circumstances as a result of the storm. So really, the situation is going to get worse before it gets better. Pennsylvania is really bracing for the worst this evening, Akash.
And Rukmani, staying with the story as far as what happens after this entire episode is over. Hurricane Katrina perhaps is still fresh in the minds of US citizens, and the fact that the administration was too tardy in its rescue efforts, and that's why perhaps Barack Obama doesn't want to take any risk. He says we will act fast and we'll act big, because this is very crucial really. This comes at the worst point of time, just before the elections.
This does come at the worst point in time, as you correctly pointed out. They had to, both Obama and Romney had to really cut short their campaign in light of this particular storm. As we were saying, Hurricane Katrina was far more intense in its destruction, the strength of the hurricane itself. This post-tropical storm, Akash, but is very expansive. It's going to extend to 800 miles. It's already packing wind speeds of 90 miles per hour, and it's only expected to grow stronger. So it's really going to devastate far more in terms of area than Hurricane Katrina, and that is something that the American authorities are really worried about.
And for all the fact that they have so advanced early warning systems, they have made the announcement, the president himself involved in all of this, but it seems the biggest problem is getting the people out. It's not really, in India, we generally say that no adequate warning was given. Here the warning is there. Right. People are just not wanting to move out. Why is that? Because they're too used to storm systems. They think that they can weather this one out as well.
Well, Akash, as you rightly pointed out, a large number of Americans are used to storm systems, they're used to tornadoes, they're used to typhoons. But in many cases, I've been reading eyewitness accounts and, people tweeting and talking about their experiences and even putting up amateur videos of the storm all over the web. A lot of them say, they're not willing to leave because their threat perception isn't as high, perhaps, as what the government is saying. There are people who are saying we are at a higher level, we are on higher ground, and we will not leave. There are others who do not want to leave because they have ailing loved ones who cannot be moved. There are some who have businesses in the area and therefore they do not want to leave. So people have their own reasons for not leaving. But Obama has been saying repeatedly that people must leave. In fact, there is the National Response Coordination Center which has put in place the do's and don'ts. They have been preparing for this days in advance, Akash, and yet there are people who have not left. As I've been saying, fatalities have already mounted to 10 and it's just a matter of hours. Let's not forget that Sandy has already claimed 16 lives in the Caribbean as she was making her way to the US. 51 people have already died in Haiti, and the most devastating impact of Sandy is expected as she crashed into New Jersey at about 8 p.m. Eastern time today. And like I said, Pennsylvania is bracing for the worst this evening.
What really are the people doing at this point of time? What sort of provisions really have they made? Because it seems that very much like here, they don't want to trust the government. They want to take matters into their own hands. So how is it that people are actually weathering this whole thing? Where sitting at home, watching television, stocking up their kitchen with perhaps grocery worth of 2 weeks of supply?
That's true, Akash. In fact, I have to say, regardless of what the response was to Hurricane Katrina, this time around Americans seemed far more prepared in terms of how to deal with the storm. But let's remember, we are talking about nature here, and no matter how prepared you are, no matter how rich a nation you are, no matter how strong a nation you are, I mean, man is powerless against nature's fury, and there's only so much that can be done. You can only prepare yourself and hope for the best and really be prepared for the worst. The National Response Coordination Center has been issuing guidelines time and again, telling people to stock up on groceries, asking them to move to higher ground if they're on low-lying areas, asking people that are most vulnerable to evacuate if necessary.
Okay, Rukmani, just hang in there for a second. Maruk also joins us from North Virginia to give us our latest input. Maruk, just take us through exactly what is happening at this point of time. What is the state of evacuation and how is the storm system doing as of now?
Well, Akash, first things first, as far as the Hurricane Sandy, as it's being called, has now been reduced to what is being called a post-cyclone, post-tropical cyclone by the National Hurricane Center here. That's first. The wind speed, which is one of the crucial factors along the East Coast, which has been reiterated again and again by all the agencies which are responsible for the entire evacuation process, are saying that the wind speeds are about 85 miles per hour. Which is comparatively higher than what it was earlier in the day. At this point, most of the evacuation processes have been completed. What the governor in New York as well as the mayor has been saying, because New York and southern New Jersey are the ones which have been most hit by Hurricane Sandy, what they are saying at this point is that as far as the agencies are concerned, the evacuation processes following all the notifications that had been registered and had been put up, the announcements that had been made. As far as that is concerned, because it's night time right now, it's 10:55 p.m. Eastern time. So that evacuation process is over, and statements have been made over and over again that whoever is out closer to the sea coast, because it's the sea coast that has been hit the hardest, should move to higher ground. So that's one. Secondly, in terms of, let me go through the main sectors which have been hit. Starting with airlines, all flights across the eastern seacoast, especially New York, which caters to about 1/4 of all the air traffic in the United States, all flights have been cancelled. This stays till about Tuesday evening, even though we're getting some reports that perhaps the Washington airports might be open post 10 a.m., but there is no confirmation on that. Secondly, as far as the metro services across 6 states, which is Philadelphia, New Jersey, Boston, New York, and Baltimore, as well as Washington, D.C., all metro transit lines have been shut down. In most areas, the bus services have also been severely affected. This is close to 250,000 plus people that have been evacuated at this point. We're getting reports from almost across the eastern seacoast that there are some places which have been turned into ghost cities following the evacuation process. There are reports, this is according to Associated Press, that about 10 people have died, which could be related directly to Hurricane Sandy, but we haven't got a confirmation from the government. So that's as far as the evacuation process is concerned. And the second part that we are looking at here in the United States, considering it's about less than 7 days to go for the election, is how the presidential campaign is being affected. Now, on the one hand, we have President Barack Obama, who is supposed to be in Florida, because that's a state that goes to polls early, in the sense they have a system here where there's voting early as well. He was in Florida, but he cut short his visit early this morning. It's still Monday night here. He's back at the White House. He's looking at all the operations, the entire evacuation process here, because there are questions being raised about whether this hurricane is actually going to cost him the presidency. So he's not taking any chances. On the other hand, we have the Republicans and Mitt Romney, who's their candidate. He's also making sure that he's staying away from the campaign trail and concentrating on what he calls is a time of crisis, is when the national leadership needs to come together. Akash.
And very quickly, Maruk, also lessons being learned from the past or not? Because Hurricane Katrina, the US administration was blatantly exposed because they did far too little. This time, Obama making a very important statement. We'll react fast, we'll react big. Obviously, he doesn't want to risk it this time around.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you put it very well, because that's what is being seen. Perhaps lessons learned from Hurricane Katrina, and B, this is an extremely crucial time. Any decision that is made at this point which goes against what is being seen as crisis control or control management is going to go against President Obama in a time which is perhaps as crucial. It's not a storm. just at any other time. It's a storm that comes right before the election. So President Obama will have to watch each of the steps, and he's perhaps doing that, sitting here right at the at the White House instead of going on campaign trail, and making sure that he's directly involved in each and every part of the evacuation process and every other contingency plan related to Hurricane Sandy.
Okay, Baruch, we'll keep coming back to you to get the very latest, but these pictures obviously speaking volumes about the kind of devastation that America is looking at this point of time. It's just the beginning. It's just the storm touching really the eastern coast. We have to wait for the next few hours to understand what is really the full damage of this. But yes, Obama already preparing for the post-storm system, and of course the National Guard also being deployed. It remains to be seen exactly what really is at the end of the day, what sort of damage are we looking at.